Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Stadia from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube, aka Game Logic on Twitch. Call me Harry, but don't you dare call me Sally. Welcome back, everyone, for another episode of Enough to Keep Going, Grown-Ups Who Game. This is the GX show for February 2021, Part 1. With me, as I have most of the time, I have my partners in crime. Swiss Guard, how you doing, Swiss?
Been a long week, but that's why I'm glad I'm here now so we can talk some games. And I know that I had to take it down a notch, but that's kind of my job here.
Cyrus Prime. Or should I say Tau Master? Did I update? I did not update your name tag for tonight. I do apologize. I will update that for next show. How you doing?
That's okay. I am well, thank you. Cold, frozen, but I'm well.
Bad there? Are you in the frozen tundra as we speak?
Yeah, we're in the single digits right now, so in the minuses overnight.
Freezing tonight, although it's supposed to drop a little bit lower. We're supposed to get a little bit of the white stuff. But instead of talking about weather, let's talk about games. We're going to start off tonight's show with a discussion about some of the new releases that we've been playing, and where applicable, we will let that dribble over into our report out on Pix Plays. I don't think mine does necessarily, but I've been playing Hitman 3 on Stadia. That is an interesting premise. I don't have that much more to report since the last time I talked about it on the show. It's more Hitman. It's Hitman. Probably more interesting than anything on this than the game itself has just been kind of like my dabbling around playing it on Stadia. So I have played it on phone on my Samsung Note 20. I've played it on a gaming laptop, an Acer Nitro 5, and I played a little bit of Stadia, not specifically Hitman 3, but also tonight on a new Chromebook that is in the shop now that I'm actually using for the health and monitoring PC now. That health and monitoring thing has been a problem for me for the last few years, and I've been wanting to put a Chromebook or a mini PC on that problem, so I'm using that tonight. But I had a small chance to play Stadia on that. Hitman 3 continues to look good. I think there's new DLC rolling out for it fairly soon. Good sales numbers is what we have heard. So IO Interactive's bet has paid off. It's the same type of slightly annoying things that it always is. A given level can take a significant amount of time. There's always a bit of trial and error to it. It's a little bit like Mirror's Edge, like I talked about last time, which is, you feel compelled to make any run through the game kind of perfect, and so you load onto a level. It's not going to be perfect, so that you're right away kind of sort of wasting time that first time through, just poking around the edges of the system and trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And then eventually you get back to trying to do a run, and it's up to you, how overly wrought you are about making that run kind of sort of perfect, which is a problem for me because I feel like it's very disruptive when you have these moments where it feels like a spy novel, and then it's just disrupted by you doing something completely clumsy and foolish. You often have situations where there's some inconsistencies where you do something right in front of a person, and that seems to not be a big deal to them, but then people spot you from 3 rooms away, so that's a problem. And you feel often, the right mix of a stealth game for me is one where you really have the options to go in and play at Bogart, versus ones where you're immediately overwhelmed as soon as there's 2 people on the screen. So, the locations that I've seen, first the game starts off on this thing called the Spire in Dubai, which is, the next highest building ever made by man, which I think all of them are in Dubai anyway. So there's that. But, sound production is great on the game. I do appreciate that. I just don't know how. There's only 12 levels in the core game, so I don't know how obligated I feel to, going through all 12. But I know that I've got it kind of marked down on my playlist that I need to settle down and spend some time with it. I kind of feel like it's another one of those games that I could spend about an hour with at a time, and then I need to move on and play something else. But that's pretty much all I have to say about Hitman. Master, you've also been playing a newly released game, one of the most anticipated games actually for the turn of this year. How's that been going?
Yeah, and before that, on Hitman, so are the levels like broken down into uh like more chapters, or do you have to do multiple things through each level, or is it just kind of like, hey, this is your hit, go get him, or her?
Yeah, right. And that would be a much more kind of digestible game, right? If it were split up into chapters, you can save. I mean, and this drives you to. I mean, you can save anywhere. So at least on the Stadia version, you can. So you can complete. A decent run through a part of it and then save it and then try and do, like, if you're having a problem with the second leg, then you can go back to where you've done a first part well, and then get around to doing the second and third parts better. There are different missions and multiple missions on each map, so there are multiple kills, there are multiple, I guess what I would call I can't remember what were the things, random encounters, right? There are more kind of incremental missions, or kind of insights and things that you can gain. Like, there's intelligence laid around all over the place that may not be pertinent to that mission, but may be pertinent to the more overall campaign of the game. There are instances where you will pass by somebody significant, like an internationally known assassin or something like that. That again isn't critical path to you completing that mission, but may open up some additional opportunities for complete. They may be enablers to completing that mission, right? Like knocking that guy out and disguising yourself as that guy. So people who don't know what he looks like, but why somebody doesn't know what you look like, but the fact that you have that guy's clothes on make you recognizable as that assassin. I don't really understand. There's a lot of suspension of disbelief in the game, but no, it just kind of presents everything to you. So in a lot of ways, it's like wait. I can't remember. I've talked about it on the game before. I can't remember if it's not Shogun Tactics. It's I think it's just Way of the Shogun, or Shadows of War, Way of the Shogun, something like that. There's a squad-based tactical game that came out 2018, 2019 maybe, that I've played before on PC. And it is a lot like that also. Like, it's just not feasible for you to complete a run through a level all in one sitting, right? It's always going to be, for the average gamer, a matter of trial and error and poking around at the edges and figuring those things out. And that's just kind of the settling down that you have to do to play, a night of Hitman.
Is it Shadow Tactics Blades of the Shogun?
With, like, a main title and like 2 or 3 subtitles. So there you go. But yes, yeah, that game is very similar, where I first sat down to play that game and just had this concept. Probably, and I highly suspect that Desperados 3, last year's release, is very similar. Had this concept that I would just, in most cases, be able to sit down and do a single run, all the way through a level, and that's just not like that game, like, forces you to save, like, minute to minute, as you go through different encounters around the map to successfully matriculate a level. So, Hitman 3, maybe not that tight in terms of tolerance. You could probably save every few minutes, but it's definitely a thing where the first time getting through a level is kind of inch by inch.
Nice. All right, yes. So I have been playing the Medium on the Xbox Series X. Kind of the first real big game that's been released on the Xbox Series X exclusive, and PC, at least console exclusive, I should say. But you can get it on PC also. It's I guess kind of a horror. They call it a horror game, but more of like a thriller, I would say. It's not as far as I can tell right now. It hasn't been like gory or anything like that. It's more, like kind of, you think that something's going to happen, but it may happen, it may not. So I played about a little bit, about an hour or so, and it's a very beautiful game so far that I've seen. I've only I basically kind of play the tutorial level more or less. I play a little bit of the next level. We kind of go into this other section of the town or city that you're in. But so far, it's just been kind of like an adventure game where you're kind of just like looking around rooms, or at least the first section I was at. I kind of looking around in this house, and I don't want to give too much away. Just kind of looking at stuff. You'll see like a little highlighted area that you can go and take a look at and see what that's about. And you have objectives you got to do is pretty simple, like find this guy's code. And there's like a whole story around this. Like it sounds kind of mundane, but you're kind of doing something here at the beginning. But so far, it's just been that. So I haven't seen if there's any kind of combat elements yet so far. I know there's puzzles and stuff that you can do. And the big thing here with the medium is this woman that you play, the protagonist, Marianne. She can go into the spirit realm. That's the medium part. So, and then she can, in the spirit realm, she can, and I kind of did this at the beginning. You can manipulate stuff, and then in the real world, then you can, like say there's like an elevator that's the electricity is turned off. Well, in the spirit world, you can go in there and turn it on, and then come back and use the elevator. So kind of stuff like that. So it's kind of cool from what I've seen so far. And then the other big thing here is that the screen. That's not all the time like this, but the screen will split when you go into the spirit world. So you got half, and it's like a vertical split so far that I've seen, where half is in the real world and the other half is the spirit world. So you got both of these kind of sections going at the same time. So I think that was one of the big selling points that were kind of being touted. Just that was kind of the power of the Series X kind of a thing. And I haven't seen any graphical hiccups or stuttering or lag or anything like that when that happens. So I only saw it a couple times so far. The screen hasn't been really busy. I don't know if there's ever like a lot of action going on or anything. So I'll have to play a lot more and to see what's going on. But it's a very heavy story game, like and not just like it like I said, the adventure side of it, but just kind of the theme that's going on in the story. It's a pretty deep subject, so it's like, oh, it's gonna be one of those games. It's kind of like how Hellblade was, but I think even more so far that I've seen. So I don't know, I'll have to break it in, some Call of Duty or Fortnite or something, just to break up that kind of gameplay and just kind of that thought you get into when you're playing this type of game. So, but I've been enjoying. I shouldn't say have fun, because I don't know if I'm having fun so much yet, or just like it's a good gameplay and stuff like that so far. But yeah, it's been pretty good so far. So we'll have to see. And the characters and so far that I've seen, there's only been a couple really. The voice acting has been pretty good so far, so it hasn't been kind of hokey like you might have seen back in the day or anything like that. So it seems to be pretty good, high production so far. And this is done by Blooper Team, which I've never actually heard of before. So they are, I think, a Polish company, I believe. I'm trying to see here real quick, but yeah, it's been pretty good so far.
I was expecting it to be survival horror type thing based on some of the screenshots and the marketing that they have. So I was kind of surprised when you said it wasn't too scary.
Yeah, like I said, I'm pretty early in the game, so that could change. There was a couple of moments where it was just like you're kind of in the spirit world talking to this person that you used to know, and he had his back to you, and he turns around and like half his head is kind of like, it's not like bloody and stuff, but it's like gone. So
So
it's a little disturbing, but it's not like gross or anything like that.
it's like The Sixth Sense, the video game.
Yeah, yeah, basically, yeah. Except you're actually getting pulled into the world instead of just like seeing like ghosts in the real world and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see if it gets like kind of the
Yeah.
more jump scare stuff.
I'm kind of eager to hear that, because I wonder what kind of tone they're gonna go with as you get deeper into it. I'm probably not gonna play it just because I tend not to like creepy stuff like that. Are you playing
Yeah.
it in the dark or with the lights on?
No, no, I don't play these games in the dark. No, thank you. I don't usually play like straight up horror games. So like these ones, I don't mind. Like it's what do you call it? Like psychological horror, kind of like I said, like how Hellblade was. It's kind of
Did,
like the thought of something gonna happen. So I
did
don't
you
mind
ever
those.
play Eternal Darkness for the GameCube?
Yes, I don't think I ever beat it. I might have got like halfway through it maybe, but yeah, I did play that one.
It's got that weird tone a little bit, but it's not really jump scary.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, especially like the puzzles. I guess it's like pretty puzzle heavy, so I'll see like how hard it gets, I guess puzzle wise, but so far it's been pretty simple. Excuse me, but I'm sure they like start you off easy, so we'll have to see.
So what you may not realize, Swiss, is that years and years and years ago, Master and our podcast partner in crime at the time, we used to give each other gaming assignments, and the two of them made me play Outlast, which I think is pretty much the last survival horror game that I've ever played.
Now, I mean, E2KG, we our picks plays used to be assignments. Like, there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, comfort zone, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And just so you know, if anyone out there, Outlast is on sale on Steam right now until February 15th for $2.99. So is it worth real quick, is it worth that, Gascles? Yes or no? One word.
Yep.
All right.
Hey, so while we are talking about Pix Plays, let's go ahead and read this last fortnight's assignment. Lots of sites and shows are exercising the last round of GOTY energy for 2020. Spend some time with your GOTY. Is it the same as it was during the Superlative show, or has there been a shift in energy and focus as the new year has gotten started? Let's talk our GOTYs in a bit more detail and depth and how they inform our taste in most anticipated games for 2021. Swiss, what did you play for this assignment?
I continued playing Ghost of Tsushima. So anytime you give me like a hanging curve ball to play something that I've been playing and continue to play for the Pix plays, I'm gonna take my shot on. And but I'm in Act 3 now. I assume that I'm getting close to the end. So there's like basically they divide the islands of Tsushima into 3 sections, and I've done the first 2. So not only like you can easily just like do the story missions and jump ahead. I have been crisscrossing the island methodically, and basically I've done every side quest for the first 2 sections and pretty much have maxed out my character now. And so the last couple of days I've basically hit some major plot points, and I think that's what I wanted to kind of focus on tonight as far as what I wanted to talk about with Ghost of Tsushima, because really I am enjoying the story. They did a really good job, I think, with the characters. Like the story, if you really want to think about it, it's not that complicated, right? Mongols invade, you got to stop the Mongols. But there's some interactions with the different characters that I found very interesting, and the ethics, I think. So there's, I don't want to like give plot points away, but just how different characters react to different things. You know, where is the line crossed when you're in a war? Like, what is the ethical thing to do? And seeing how that plays off, and um, I find myself identifying with different characters in different ways. They've done a pretty good job about not like, I don't want to say stereotyping is the wrong word, but just like this character's the hothead character and this character's the crazy character. Like they don't everybody has like, they're human, really. Like they have flaws and they also have virtues. So um it's really hard to talk like with Prime, like what Tao said. Um it's hard to really describe this in without giving stuff away, but um it, I feel like Ghost of Tsushima was really overlooked. It didn't get the same level of attention. I think that a lot of these major PS4 games, like these single player open world things, have gotten in years past, and I don't know if it was because of when it came out, because it hit in the middle of the summer, and Last of Us Part 2, that was April, right?
Yeah.
So okay, so kind of came on the heels of that, but we weren't really into the new console fever yet. So like I don't know, I kind of wish it would have gotten some more love, but uh yeah, I'm probably between 65 and 70 hours in. So I am enjoying just exploring the map and discovering new objectives and maxing the character out. I enjoy the combat. It's um I mean it's fairly straightforward combat, but it's not frustrating like a Sekiro can be. But and it feels responsive enough. Like I don't like the Batman Arkham style combat games. Like so I'm kind of I like this one is I can use my ghost weapons, go into a massive enemies and do some real damage and but I also always feel like I'm kind of in control, and I didn't feel that way with like those Batman games. So, I think it's a really solid title. I'm eager to wrap it up.
So, just to fact check, Last of Us Part 2 is June 19th, so about a month
Oh,
before
okay,
Ghosts.
so that makes more sense. It was April, and they pushed it back. Then
Yeah,
maybe
yeah, I
that
think
was
that,
what it
yeah, they
was.
pushed it.
Okay, so it got eclipsed a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I remember too, like the hype was actually pretty good, like before this was about to come out, and then it just like kind of came out, and it was just like, okay, like everybody thought it was good, like everybody liked it, but it was just like nothing happened like at the end of the year. So I don't know. It was actually looked pretty cool. I actually, if I had a PS4, that it'd be besides Spider-Man, this would be another one I definitely want to pick up and take a look at. And the gameplay, like you said, it wasn't bet many, but is it I guess is it more? And I don't know if you've ever played the games, but like Demon Souls and Bloodborne, where it's kind of like, uh, yeah, you're more likely gonna die on this person because you just got
No,
to kind of figure it out, or it's more straightforward.
it's more straightforward. It's much more forgiving than those types of games. So
Okay.
I mean, different enemies will have different weaknesses, but it's pretty quick to change your stance to like this enemy has a shield, so there's a special stance that you can do to that. And then with the ghost weapons, like there's special things like you can throw little sticky grenades or kunai, like little um, knife type things at people and stun them. So
Game where like every boss is like every boss is not a is not like a haha I've got a secret boss, where you're just fighting that individual over and over and over and over again, trying to find the weak point. Like Swiss said, it's more like it's a straight up combat game. Like every fight is winnable. And not too far into the game, you get a lot of different tools and approaches. You have a sufficiently robust set of options on how to approach each different battle. I mean, I think part of the thing with the placement of Ghost of Tsushima is I mean, first of all, it's a bit like it's not niche, but it's like niche adjacent, right? Like that very particular taste for I guess what I would think of as kind of an Asian historical setting is just maybe not like the like Sekiro is
it's got a fantasy. It's got
yeah,
Sekiro has fantasy elements,
right,
and this one is much more like
historical.
More
historical
grounded.
fiction
Yeah.
type
Oh,
stuff.
okay.
Yeah, so I think that played into how it was in the market, and I think it didn't. While the hype was very high, and similar to The Last of Us Part Two, just in that they were the two final like new title releases on that platform. I think you had the additional accelerant in the fuel for The Last of Us Part Two in that it was a sequel, so it already had a fan base, whereas not everyone
Right.
knew. Ghost of Tsushima, unfortunately, will probably be a thing that sees a lot of people playing it, a lot more people playing it this year. And it would be a great game. I don't think it's part of the PlayStation Plus collection that PlayStation 5 buyers get, but it would be That's a game that's I don't know. I almost hate to see it go on PlayStation on PS Plus, but it's definitely a thing where I could see if it were positioned somewhere where it was readily more accessible at your fingertips. It might see even more uptake, and it would be great to see a sequel. On PlayStation 5 hardware.
We'll see, we'll see how we'll see how the game ends, whether like it lines itself up for a sequel. I'm not quite there yet. But it's interesting what you said about it's kind of niche adjacent because like their inspiration was like old samurai films. But if you look at Hollywood today, like what do are samurai films a thing right now? Like not really. But guess what was a thing fairly recently? Zombies, right? I mean, just it. So yeah, that's a good point. I think it's
Like that setting. I like that setting. I just don't know that particular setting like grabs everyone. It's interesting that how you're going about playing it because that sounds very similar to like how I've gone about playing the Division 2, where like I look at my time in that game, which I can't remember what I said like a week or so ago that I have like 40, 50 something hours in that game, and that is not commensurate with my percentage of progression through the main storyline because I've just played it like a big open world map of stuff to go do and hit lots of side missions, but I haven't like dedicatingly given myself over to straight lining through that game through the main campaign. So, but I've had a ton of fun in it, and I feel like I've definitely got my return on investment out of it. So,
well, that one last point on that and I think I mentioned this probably in my first comments on Ghost of Tsushima, but it's worth bearing repeating. They're what they call tales. They're really quests, right? I mean, there's some things to find, but then they have little side quests that they call tales. They're not long. You can do a tale in 10 minutes. And so it's very much where, okay, it's the end of the night. I'm tired. I need to go to bed, but I can pop that in and relax for 20 minutes or 30 minutes and do a couple of tales and feel like I've accomplished something. Get a little bit of a story, even if it's just helping the peasant find his daughter and escape from the Mongols. Like, okay, I did something, and get get something out of my session. So
analogous to the way the Division 2 is set up and the way I proceeded through that game. Right, each night I get started that each night that I was playing that game I would get started. My overall objective was kind of in 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 a couple of hours of gameplay to kind of get through three kind of mission chapters. But again, those mission chapters are not necessarily the main; they're just the side missions, right? And each little side mission has a bit of a reveal of like the greater story fabric of the Division 2. And so yeah, and I mean that was my objective was to get through three chapters, knowing that I would have to replay some of it, right? Because in the Division 2, you can just get having to transit everywhere on foot and with no vehicles, you could just get capped, like just on your way to, a mission area if you get involved in a tough fight. So, yeah, very very similar, very interesting to hear, and I agree with much of what you said about the Ghost of Tsushima from my own experience. So, Prime, you played something that was almost could have arguably wound up in the new releases segment, but is maybe just a few weeks out of that window. What did you wind up playing for this assignment?
Yeah, so I kept playing Immortals: Phoenix Rising, which was pretty much my game of the year last year. Just a fun open world Ubisoft game, which is like pretty much all of them now. But it has that Greek Roman kind of mythology going on within the game. So you have Zeus and um, all the different kind of gods and stuff that you're trying to save basically. And it's just a big well, basically just kind of like a Zelda clone, but with to me it's a little bit better because you don't have the breakable weapons and you don't have well, you do have the stamina meter, but it's a little bit better I think in this game. You can kind of upgrade it a little bit more than I think Zelda in Breath of the Wild. You have the cooking elements kind of just like in there too, where you make potions and food for yourself because there's a health bar and a stamina bar. Um, I just gotten to the point where I got a fairly decent. I don't want to say weapon, but kind of like a special ability where you have this phoenix that you can call in and it like just pounds the crap out of the enemy that you pointed at. So that's kind of cool. And there's a cooldown to it, so you can't just like abuse it. So that's kind of nice. And the one thing too that is kind of nice about this game is you can kind of tailor it to how you want to play. So the different skill trees that you can go down, like fighting, or you can power up your god powers. Excuse me. You can't really fly, but you can kind of glide, or at least not right now, that as far as I can tell. But you can do the kind of this gliding ability, so that's kind of cool. You got like Zeus's lightning and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm just having a lot of fun with this game. It's really cool. And I'm playing on the Switch, so it looks pretty good. Actually, I was playing on my TV the other day, and it's just like a 1080p TV. It's not 4K or anything, and it I don't know. I think it actually looks better than the handheld, which usually that's not the case. Because I did play it on handheld a lot too, and even before when I started playing it, I was playing on handheld, and I don't know. I don't think I really played it on the TV before. I was playing here on my my 2K monitor or 4K monitor, and I don't know. I thought it looked a lot better on the TV than on my monitor or anything else, or even like I said, handheld. So, but yeah, I'm having a lot of fun. I'm gonna keep playing on it.
A monitor, that's definitely the Nintendo Switch effect, which is just that like that 1080p that the Switch renders does not look good on a 4K TV or monitor. I have it hooked up on the same TV with my Xboxes and PlayStations, and it definitely looks better for me when I move it over to a 1080p monitor, just because the 4K makes it a little more patently obvious how not that great it looks in comparison to other platforms. It looks fine for itself, but staggers a little bit up next to other platforms. So gameplay wise, we've had a little bit of a talk tonight about a lot of different combat systems. So the combat system in Ghost of Tsushima, the Nemesis, the combat system in the Batman Arkham Asylum games, which is the same as the combat system in Shadows of Mordor games, which I've spent more time playing. And I don't know if Prime is going to be back, so I was going to ask him. Oh, there he is.
Oh, no, I'm here. Sorry.
So, how overall? I mean, I know you said it doesn't have the breakable weapons like Legend of Zelda, but in comparison to other combat systems, not solely on the Switch, that are rendered from a third-person view. How do you feel the combat system on Immortals Phoenix Rising measures up? Like, if we talked a little bit tonight about too going down rabbit holes and side stories and quests and things like that. Is Immortals Phoenix Rising something that you can see yourself spending some time with outside of the main campaign, based on the combat system?
Yeah, definitely. The only problem I have with the combat system, and this is something I can go in and change, but it's the button mapping that they've done for the different fighting style or fighting abilities. Like they have the trigger and the shoulder button, the right trigger and right shoulder button for like the light and heavy attack, and for some reason that just feels weird to me. Like I can't use the trigger as an attack button on a 3D like fighting game like this. I have to have it like on a face button, and I have to go in there and change it. But then when you change that, there's like secondary abilities that you have and control schemes that kind of change along with that. So you got to just rearrange all kinds of different things. So I got to just spend some time and change that butt configuration. That's like the only thing that kind of bothers me about it. Like I don't. And there was something else I was playing too recently where it was kind of the same thing. I can't remember what it is right now, but they have the trigger as the main attack button. It just feels weird to me to do that because it's not like a shooter. Like a shooter I can understand, but if it's just like a third person fighting, like man, I just can't do it with that. So it just feels totally weird to me.
Get any disagreement from me there. Swiss, any questions for Tao about Immortals Phoenix Rising?
I just don't understand why you think that not having breakable weapons is an asset in a video game.
It's just more of an annoyance. I just thought of it when I was playing Zelda. Really. I get it, like why they were trying to do it, but it's just like, oh, come on, man. Like even though like the strongest weapon would break like after a few plays with it.
In Immortals though, are like all the weapons like can you defeat an enemy and pick up the weapon, or are they more like classic Zelda where it's like, you know, dun, da, 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 you get whatever out of the treasure chest type thing, claiming a
Yeah,
special.
yeah, it's more like old style. It's not you can't pick up stuff from the enemies. And for right now, there's only like two weapons that you have, like a sword and an axe. I don't know if you can get different ones. Even you can change those aesthetically, like you can change the skins and stuff. But that's pretty much it. You can upgrade them, like I said before, to make them stronger and have different abilities. But other than that, I haven't really. I don't know if you get like anything else other than the sword and the axe as the game goes on. So well, I'll have to see. It doesn't look like it, excuse me, from just the menu screen, but I mean, it's possible that they'll just like totally swap out a weapon if you get it. Maybe I don't know. It's just kind of weird, I guess. I never really thought about that. But yeah, you're right. And in Zelda, you can like pick up all kinds of different things. So I get, like I said, I get what they were trying to do, but I just don't like it. It's just annoying.
A little bit where you can pick up any weapon that's laying on the ground, and that's Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, which I've been playing more of. I had kind of so I've been meandering a lot the last few weeks. I think I've mentioned last show. I've backpedaled out of live streaming, and that kind of forced me. That and some other things that are going on work wise has forced me to kind of get in here in the studio and convert this over to less of a studio and more of a work and research area. So, I had also concurrently kind of backpedaled out of Call of Duty because I wasn't live streaming it as much. But I have some financial triggers to go back and look at like games that I have subscriptions and things for, and so I hit one of those this week. So I went back to Call of Duty Black Ops on the Xbox Series S, and it has caused me to revisit whether or not I should be playing that game more frequently because it changes like so much even within this one season, and so my level's still there, obviously, and one of the things that attracts me is that persistent progression model, which I talked about playing more of this year. So after a couple of hours of play, I am up to level 151, which is Prestige 4. And I continue to go into rooms, and there just aren't that many people up at that level. There are some people that are astronomically higher. I've seen 400 this week. It's not unusual. It's not entirely unusual now to go into a room and see a couple of people above 200. But
Yeah, I think 234 is the highest I've seen so far.
yeah.
Wow, I can't believe 400. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. But I mean, we're still at the point where like in a room of, 12 to 16 people, I see like 5 people who are clustered up at my level or higher. Still kind of in that vanguard of people who have spent that much time in it. And it's also, not to toot my own horn, but just to talk about how it's a different, planescape now in terms of, my interest level in these games and what's attracting me to these games is it's still interesting that after a couple of weeks of laying off, and going back, like there's still enough of variance in the skill-based matchmaking that, after a few rounds of warming up, I'm getting back onto teams where, I'm the number one person, at the end of the round, or the number 2 person on my team where, I'm number 2 on my team, but that's still higher than like their top guy on the opposing team, and still getting wins. So it's very interesting that it's a thing, and it's apparently, not, I didn't just get lucky, right? But I'm playing on my, Elite Controller Series 2, this week. I may have mentioned that I did invest in a set of aftermarket analog stick nubs, and so I started off playing this week with the concave ones. What's aggravating about the Series 2 is that there are no tall concave analog sticks. There are only short concave analog sticks, so I prefer the concave, but I can't find those. And so I'm playing with a couple of convex analog sticks, but they are taller, and I found in this most recent session that I do play better with those overall. And so sticking with those for a while. Again, it's nice that they're magnetic, so you can swap them out right in the middle of a session or in the middle of a round, and there's not that much impact. One of the weird things on that controller is I had dialed down the pre-configured trigger throw distance settings, and on the Thrustmaster gamepad, I have that tightened up, to a very short distance, so that those triggers act as hair triggers. But I noticed on the Series 2, they're weird in that pulling them actuates very quickly, but they're also very sensitive, and like the slightest release of any pressure on the left trigger, which you use to scope in, will drop the scope in. And so I may need to go back and maybe loosen that one up, but keep the trigger one tight. But I just responded by moving them both out to the mid level. So takes a little bit more pull and reduces the reaction speed just a hair. But I've had fun playing this week. It's interesting that, again, there are new modes, there are new maps mid-season. So they've taken Express, which I think is a train station that I think is on the Warzone map that you can find. And so that is now a multiplayer mode map in Cold War. So, more fun. Continue to go into that. But yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say that was an old Black Ops 2 map, I believe. Express.
Gotcha. So they have all the past historical maps. They have areas on Warzone. There's just a ton of maps that they can continue to drop, and it's nice to be. Yes, we have the season pass now that you have to pay for, but it's nice that we're no longer in the realm of map packs that have like 3 new maps, or $20, and that splits the player community. It's kind of weird, I guess, in some ways, that I guess you just don't pay for maps anymore, and so when that new map pops out in the middle of the season, whether you have the battle pass or not, it still can come up in your rotation. So you have to decide what you feel about that, about paying for a battle pass, but yeah, I've continued to have fun on it. The modes continue to be interesting. One thing about the Xbox, at least on the Series S, that still continues to be aggravating is, if you really need to watch, if you're playing that game with mouse and keyboard, that when you are about to back out of the game, that you always reset it back to controller, because if you start the game after that and you've disconnected the mouse and keyboard, it just won't pop back to controller mode. It'll bring up dialogue that says, "Hey, keyboard's been disconnected. Do you want to switch to the controller?" But try as I might, I can't get that to trigger anything. I hit every button on my controller and it never selects that. So I basically just have to shut the game down, attach a mouse and keyboard, which, fortunately for me, I have some keyboards that have mouse and keyboard integrated, so I don't have to go find 2 pieces of USB equipment. But still, at the end of the day, if I haven't formally flipped it over to controller before I shut it down and then go back to the game later, I wind up having to attach a keyboard so that it never goes to that dialogue screen when it starts. It just says, "Oh, he was on mouse and keyboard before, he's got a mouse and keyboard attached now." And then once the game is up and running, then I can go into settings, flip it over to controller, and then disconnect the mouse and keyboard. But yeah, that continues to be a naggy pain in the tootie. Any questions on Call of Duty, guys, before we roll on?
Yep.
I'm going to switch how we go through the rest of our rundown, because I don't really like how I sequenced the agenda, but Swiss, I guess I will go to you to talk a little bit of Halo Combat Evolved, since we're kind of on the shootery segment, pew pew,
All right,
of our show.
So, my wife and I picked this up sometime over Christmas, and I was going to try to do it as like kind of an alternative to Destiny, and for whatever reason, I was like, well, we'll do it release chronologically, and so we installed Halo Combat Evolved, the first one from the Master Chief Collection. And
so you're doing it in a release order, not in chronological order of the lore.
Yeah, release order, not lore order.
Okay, gotcha.
Um, and you know, it. I had never owned an Xbox, and I know way back in the day, I think they did release Halo on PC. Like this isn't the first time it's been on PC, but I didn't have it. So, um, I actually have never really played Halo for a significant amount of time. I might have played, multiplayer at a friend's house or something back in the day, but I've never played the campaigns. So, uh, this was really my first taste, and I gotta say, I feel like Halo Combat Evolved has not aged well, and it's a bit of a struggle to. I mean, we're about halfway through. We've done like 5 missions, but really, it feels like a grind to get through them. And like, there's some nice stuff. Like, I guess Halo. What was Halo really one of the first shooters to do the thing with like the shield that kind of regenerates over time, and you don't have like to worry about the health packs like littering the. So I guess that's neat, but man, this game is a lot of samey um, corridors and whatnot on the maps, and they don't have any indicators to say you need to go this way to your objective. So it's just wandering around, and I guess is that like the way it should be, or have I been um, am I kind of did I go soft in my old age, like with recent gaming and whatnot? But to me, it's like if I'm playing a shooter, I need more action. I don't want to feel like I'm just like wandering around with the chicken with my head cut off looking for something. Like I swear there was one mission where like we couldn't get through the gate, and like it was just because like the whatever switch was in a weird kind of corner and we didn't see it. And so for these missions,
Where you have to get
it,
out of the tank and go like hit a switch,
you know
and then
exactly
the
what
barricade
I'm talking
lowers.
about.
Yeah.
Yes, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's been a little bit frustrating with that, especially since we've been such big Destiny players, and like Destiny has taken some of the roots. Like, I mean, obviously it's Bungie, so, but man, the levels of polish that have come in the intervening years, I'm very thankful for. So, I I I pretty much told my wife, I said, if you want to stop, I will go through the rest myself because I feel like a duty to finish it, but I don't necessarily want to punish you anymore to play with me. So I'm not sure if she's going to continue with me. One other note. So Halo Combat Evolved, or I'm sorry, the Master Chief Collection, it's like a remaster. So you can hit the tab key and jump between like old school Xbox graphics and like their modded remaster. And I've been playing it on the old school Xbox because the modern remaster actually makes the sameness of like the levels even worse. So at least like the 2002 or whatever era graphics, there was some level of maybe hinting that this is the direction I had to go. Now there's just so many like plants and fauna and whatever on the map. It's like too much to see, and combine that with the level design's not great, and it's like I can't even get through it. I have to turn it off so it's like you can almost focus on, okay, the original designers had less to work with, so maybe there's some better clues about where I'm supposed to go. But even then, it's been a disappointment, and I'm sorry to say. So I'm hoping that future Halos improve the experience.
If I were you and I felt that way, well, again, you feel obligated to trudge through it, so I would, wouldn't discourage that at all. I would say that I would think that a lot of that's going to be similar across Halo 1, 2, and 3. But that you will. I don't know about Halo 4, but I could definitely say that you will definitely experience a change in that style, in ODST, I believe, and in Reach, without doubt. I think a lot of the, structuring that game around the notion that a 4-person squad is going to be participating in it maybe drove some of that change. But yeah, like what you just walked through, like almost verbatim, I could have written that script um, from the perspective of like the the early 2000 Agassicles Stamus, and his impression of Halo at the time is a different script than 2020 Agassicles Stamus and how I view that franchise from the exact same perspective from having played Destiny 2. There are so many quality of life improvements in the way Destiny 2 allows you to manage things that yeah, it definitely feels antiquated. The missing of the not having the indicator that just tells you where to go. I'm like, I'm not gaining any experience, or it's not deepening my level of
Doesn't help the immersion.
right,
It doesn't.
yeah, right, by having to wander around, and it and yeah, and that wasn't exactly a thing that I felt back in 2005. It's a thing that I feel now, is that the only difference now is now I know that I'm gonna hit those, and there are some of them like in Halo, which is only Halo's only a 6.5 to 8.5 hour game, depending on how you trudge through it. But there's probably about 5 to 8 points in that game that I can distinctly think of that I'm like, okay, if you don't know where to go on this, you're going to spend time wandering around. In the second run through on PC, there's maybe half, like I hit those maybe half. Like there are some that I'm like, okay, I remember that I'm supposed to get right, but then some of them I'm still just like, like when you're out in the jungle and you're like, I don't know where the heck I'm supposed to go. Like you're navigating by sound. The only thing that helps you is maybe to a certain extent you can count on when you hear like the little Covenant who are always jabbering and saying little funny quotes. Like in general, the theorem that head in the direction of enemies is usually a good indicator for any shooter that's probably in the direction of adversity is probably where the game designers wanted you to go. But it's not a pleasant experience overall to have to rely on that as you're trying to get through a level. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
So my big question is, what made Halo popular? I guess it was the multiplayer, right? Because I don't see how it could have been the campaign. I don't know.
The big thing was it was the technology shift and platform shift, right? There just hadn't been a great shooter on consoles up to that point. Everything was like markedly, even from an experiential standpoint, a story driven standpoint, everything. I mean, so first of all, to that point, in my mind, the only truly great story driven first person shooter game was Half-Life, and we didn't have Half-Life on consoles. So Halo to me was kind of the first.
So where do you put
Yeah.
GoldenEye 007 then?
So GoldenEye, people, you guys are gonna hate me for saying this, and people are gonna hate me for saying it was on Nintendo. So if you weren't a Nintendo gamer, you just didn't experience that. And the GameCube, I mean, you guys have to help me out. Like, was the GameCube? It was on GameCube, right? Was that one of their higher selling?
No, that was N64.
N64.
Yeah,
Okay.
64.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was a weird controller, and I mean, again, if you weren't a Nintendo gamer, you didn't experience it. I mean, and was that? I mean, I know multiplayer was very popular. That's what I know of from a gaming history standpoint. But was it popular from a single player campaign perspective?
I enjoyed playing it. I probably beat it and then played it on multiple difficulties. I seem to remember. But again, like you said, like my fondest memories of that are getting like the splitter and having the signal from this N64 be split and then having it on two TVs and then taping cardboard on the other TVs. So we actually were blind. Like my brother couldn't see where I was and I couldn't see where he was when we would just like stuff like that. Just things that kids these days aren't going to have to experience, aren't going to be able to experience. But
I would say that played into the Halo effect also. Like Halo had was buoyed hugely by the college dorm effect, and the fact that like four college dorm roommates, right, could buy Xboxes themselves, right, and get four screens, right, and play Halo, right. So
Yeah, they could do the local LAN parties and stuff.
all right. Man, I don't even know where to head next. I'll go ahead and burn one of mine. So I have been briefly played The Witcher 3 on Xbox Series S because it's on Game Pass, and so I had dabbled into that game on PC last year. Obviously, we have since then come through the Cyberpunk strife, but at the end of the day, The Witcher 3 is still regarded as one of the better RPGs on console. I was, again, at that point, looking for something to play to get some time back on Xbox, but not spend time in Call of Duty. Again, kind of the second time through, experiencing that, the upfront story piece of that kind of helped orient me into the kind of that universe. And so I haven't played that much of it, but I'm going to continue trudging through it on the Xbox. I played through a bit of it last year, and there were some bugginess and some things that didn't take and have a ton of traction with me. Just, ran up against a broken mission, didn't really fully grasp like the progression paradigm in terms of, what, decomposed incremental skills and talents and whatnot to advance. Kind of felt like there wasn't a huge amount to level progression in terms of how much of a difference it would make in your gameplay style. So I'm going to try and kind of trudge through that element of the game a second time, again, on Xbox, and just see how it goes. Tao, you want to go ahead and talk about Haven?
Yes. So this is another Xbox Series X game that I tried on the system. This one I only played probably like 20, maybe 30 minutes, if even that. So really quick, kind of. So you're this couple. I'm not even sure if you're married actually yet because I'm pretty early in the story, but you're on this planet running away kind of from I don't know so much as like a whole planet or just kind of like the society that you were in, and you kind of just I don't want to say so. It's not heavy on survival, but there's survival elements in the game where you kind of pick up things and craft food and stuff like that. But so far you're just.
Can you help me out with what genre of game is this? Is this this is an indie like third person action adventure game or
third person kind of role playing like I said with a little bit of survival elements in there. Like I said, you can kind of craft. Well, so far that I've seen, you can just kind of craft food and stuff like that. I don't know if there's like shelter building or anything if you go into that far into it or not.
Is it kind of on the crafting end of a game like Rust or?
No, not that. Okay. Not that deep into it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
At least not as far as I've seen so far. So the majority of what I did was kind of where your spaceship is in this planet in this area, you kind of just go around and collecting these kind of like orbs, and kind of fruit-ish things. I guess they don't really say what they are, but it kind of looks like fruit. To craft some food and energy for your ship to power it, basically. So that's basically all I've done so far. I haven't really got too much into it, and kind of the banter in between the two characters, the man and woman, kind of give a little bit of clues of what's going on. But I haven't gotten too far into it, so I'm pretty super early into this game. It's kind of cel shaded ish graphics when you're actually in the world. When you're talking in between each other in the ship, it's just like a static image of the man and the woman kind of just sitting there, and you see the text going back and forth between each other. So that's not animated or anything. So, but I mean, the gameplay so far is pretty smooth. You kind of have you don't really walk around. You have like these gravity boots on that you kind of like float around the world. So that's kind of cool. It's not like kind of just trudging along the environment. So. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've played of that game so far. But I'm gonna keep going on it. Seems like it'd be a little bit more story driven, a little bit than kind of gameplay. But we'll see what happens as I get more into the game.
A bit like No Man's Sky, then.
No, I don't think so. I don't think you. As far as I've seen in the kind of videos and stuff, I don't think you can go to the different worlds or anything like that, or like break apart the world. I think it's more just collecting stuff within the area that you're in or areas that you'll eventually get into. So
You said that. So it's kind of feels like an RPG. So when you're controlling both characters, it's not a pain in the neck or anything. It's like turn-based type thing, or
yeah, you can just like switch between the two if you
and
need
then
to.
it's like the AI take over the other one.
Yeah, she's just kind of like when I was out in the world, she's just kind of floating there, but beside me, or vice versa if I was controlling
Okay.
her. So yeah, like they have their own abilities. I haven't really seen too much of what the difference between the two so far, but from what I've read too, that they have their own special things they can do. So you'll have to switch back and forth. And I guess there is some combat too, but I haven't seen that yet, so I don't even know. All I've done is float around and collect orbs, basically, and fruit so far, and craft some stuff. So that's about it. It's a pretty game, though. I will say that. So it's cell shaded, kind of cell shady graphics. So I mean, that's usually a pretty safe bet as far as graphic wise.
And so it sounds like you're at least for a few more hours planning on sticking with it and exploring it a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna keep at it.
Swiss, breaking things up a little bit here. Can I get you to talk a little bit about your revisit of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe? Has that been a family game night, or have you just been playing that on your own?
Yeah, I figured I put it in that section because it was like a 1 or 2 line thing. My son was talking smack, so I had to put him in his place. That's all. He's picking Rainbow Road and trying to go, and you know,
Little does he know.
yep.
What
But
control?
yeah, so it's good to have those. Switch is great for those family game night things. So
What controllers are you playing with? Because my daughter came down and she and I played a little bit, and of course I just lost my tolerance for Joy Cons pretty early in the Nintendo Switch life cycle, and so like
I
yeah, go ahead.
I avoid Joy Cons as much as possible, to be honest. Like, if I'm in handheld, like it's one thing, but I will not take the Joy Cons out and do them like individually. I can't stand that. I don't like putting them in a little Joy-Con grip. So I invoke dad privileges and I get the Pro controller.
Okay, very good. I actually got forced, so I tried to find my Joy-Con grips, and I'm afraid I may have thrown them out in disgust because I just got tired of dealing with the Joy-Cons. So my Joy-Cons have literally been sitting on my Nintendo Switch for over a year at least, and so I took them off and tried to play with two just in the nunchuck mode. Then tried to switch to one while playing Mario Kart, and I just neither one of those. I was just like these things like I was ready to just throw them in the trash as well. So I actually bought a second Pro controller, but I bought like a third party aftermarket, like, half the expense of the Pro controller kind of thing to try that out and see how that works. I've not had a chance to play with it yet, but
Your daughter, like, what did your daughter play with? Like, she likes that. She likes that aftermarket Pro controller.
she has not played with that. I let her have the Pro controller. So
Okay.
she came down and she was playing it, and at first she was over there by herself and I was doing some other stuff. So again, I just wouldn't have normally messed with the Joy Cons, but we were trying to play two players. While I was looking for the grips, she was playing with the Pro controller, and I didn't want to take her off once she's been working with it. Usually when she comes down, she just plays something single player while I'm doing something else. So again, like you said, like I just don't want to even be bothered with the Joy-Con, so I just let her play with the Pro controller. It is her extent to which she's played it has never escalated to the point where we would both be using it. So I just hit my tip over point where I was like, just make the investment in a second, more professional controller.
Do you remember the brand of controller yet? The third party brand?
Not right off the top of my head, but I'll
Okay, I was just wondering.
when we get off the show, I will I'll definitely give you guys a link to it. So, I have been playing Anthem on PC, so I became kind of enamored with the game. On Xbox Series S when I was just kind of looking for something to play on the new hardware. Liked it enough that I wanted to invest in it and play on the PC. Did anybody see in the news? I know this isn't our news show, but I did see a blurb that mentioned that EA was going to make their final decision about what they were going to do about Anthem. I think in their earnings call. Did anybody see what the results of that were?
No, I haven't seen it. I'm not sure if it actually happened yet, the earnings call, but I haven't seen any stories about it, so I don't think it has.
I think so they had their earnings call, and one of the things they mentioned in the earnings call was that they would be making their final decision about Anthem after the call that week. So,
yeah, I haven't seen anything about it.
So hopefully I haven't gotten super enamored with the game that EA is about to kill off, but that may be the case. The game plays even. I mean, I'm way more immersed in the game on PC even than I was on Xbox. Going around Tarsus still kind of has its issues just in terms of, unlike Destiny 2, when you're at the tower, you still run around at a pretty good clip. You can get around and observe everything. Whereas when you're in Tarsus in the game, you just move at a relatively incredibly slow pace, even if you have like the run mode, shift key hit. But at the end of the day, I still have a pretty great time with it. Just like when you're out in the world of Anthem, like the flight mode is just incredible. It works even better on PC. I can do so many more things on PC that I can't pull off on controller. Like I can hit the mid-flight rolls and things like that. The increased resolution and the increased field of view just give you a better sense of the structure of the world that you're in. Makes it easier to follow waypoints. Makes so many missions that on console are a bit of a struggle. Just because like when you find, I can't remember what the name of all these things are, but when you're on those levels where there's like there's a thing, I don't know what it is, like there's a thing with like tentacles or shards sticking out of it, and you have to go around the map and find like the light baubles and bring those back. Like those are so much easier to pick up and track and see with the wider field of view and the higher resolution to get around, and it's just amazing. Much like is the case with Destiny, on mouse and keyboard, I can actually feel like I approach the level of feeling like a professional freelancer, right, and going out in the world and actually being able to handle myself. Whereas on console, I'm just like, fumbling and finger mashing and everything to try and get through a level. So, and again, from a text perspective, when you have other players on the map, you can see much better where they are and pick up on what they're doing and figure out how to work with them. One of the kind of the problems with Anthem is it's all like the whole locomotion is like incredible, and it's great being in the flying suit of armor. It makes playing as a team very difficult, right? Because it's like you're both on screen. It's third person view. You're clipping and like doing strikes and offensive moves over on top of each other, and it's like very difficult to gain a sense of how can I best work with this other person in this flying suit of armor in tandem. So, but I had a great time with it. I'm hoping they don't kill it off. There's yeah, go ahead.
I did a quick Google, and I don't think they've announced yet what has come of that story.
Continue to enjoy and have my love for the game while it continues to remain in existence. Let's see. Tao, do you want to talk about your time in the Monster Hunter demo?
Yeah. So I was playing this a little bit earlier today. I tried it a few weeks ago, and I was really quick jumping into it. I think when I was at lunch at work, and I got into a little bit more today, and it's just, man, I've tried other Monster Hunter worlds or Monster Hunter games, and I don't know. There's something about it, I can't get into them for some reason. I thought this one might be a little bit different because it looked like it was a little bit more, a little bit more. I don't want to say open world, but you can do maybe more stuff into it. Like there's like almost like a grappling hook kind of ability now that you have on. I think it's for every character. There's like maybe 10 characters, I think, or 8 to 10 characters you can choose from. And it might just been the character I was using, but he seemed like he was just super slow and like he was just like slogging around the world. And you do get like a little a mount basically that you can jump on and kind of move around a little bit faster. But just when I was just like, even fighting the creatures, I was like, it was just like I was walking through molasses with this guy with this character. So I don't know. I got to try maybe a different character and try to maybe someone's a little bit faster and just moves around a little bit better. So maybe that was the problem. But like the fighting and stuff seemed pretty cool. This was the game that I was thinking of earlier. That once again they're using the right trigger as the main. I think it's the heavy attack. So I don't know why they do that, but um, like I said, it seemed okay, I guess. But I gotta get into it a little bit more. And I think you can actually play multiplayer in this. So I might try to play with somebody just to see if it's a little bit better experience. It probably will be. I didn't have any problems like with the creatures and stuff when I was battling them, but I don't know. It just seemed kind of like the controls just seemed kind of clunky for me. It looked good. It looked fine on the Switch. I'm playing this on the Switch, and it looked fine. There's no graphic problems or anything like that. But yeah, it was just the gameplay wise. I was getting kind of frustrated with. So I gotta give it another try and just try to pick somebody else and see if they're a little bit better. So and there's no jump button. I don't like that. I really don't like when there's not a jump. Like this is a game where I figured, hey, I can like jump off a cliff and like use that little grappling hook thing. Nope, I can't do that. So you kind of like jump automatically sometimes, but there's no like dedicated jump button. So that kind of bothers me too. I don't know. That's just like a little pet peeve of mine in different games.
I'm with Tao, and I don't understand the Monster Hunter either.
Yeah. Like I said, I think if I did it with people, like more than one person, I'd probably be a little bit better experience. Or maybe I just gotta play it with somebody who's like played these before to give me some tips or something. So I don't know. We'll see.
I third that motion. I've never I've never been interested in playing a Monster Hunter game. I tried the Monster Hunter World a couple years ago, and it didn't grab me. Too much friction up front in those opening chapters. Hey, so that was the demo that you played. So it obviously didn't pull you over the edge and convince you to go ahead and plunk down for the game. But the Falconeer on Xbox, are you playing that on Game Pass?
Yes. Yeah, I'm playing on Game Pass. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, this was another. Sorry, go ahead. Oh, yeah, this was another one that was another exclusive indie title that came out for the Series S and X and the PC. But this is the I played even less than this than Even Haven, so I think I did like 15 minutes. So far, I mean, it plays fine. Once again with the controls. I think the controls were a little bit loose on this thing. Like I just turned a little bit, and my like Falcon was like just like banked like super hard, and I was like, whoa, what's going on? So I was kind of in a dogfight too at this point, and I don't know. I gotta see if in the control once again I have to go into the controls and try to see if I can dial the sensitivity down just to get myself under control. But so like yeah, this is kind of open world, just fighting game. So you're always on this falcon, this giant falcon that you ride on all the time. And this is another game where they give you a lot of characters that you can choose from, kind of like in Monster Hunter. And I don't know if this game, if there's, it didn't seem like in the description, like they give you a description for each character, but I don't know if that really does anything for the actual gameplay. And I think that the Falcon changes to like colors and like how it looks and stuff like that, depending on who you pick. But I didn't see any difference between the different characters, but it might just be aesthetics. So, but yep, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So does the combat feel like a medieval fantasy Star Fox type thing?
Yeah, that's basically is what it is. I'm trying to think of the other. What was the dragon one? I think
Panzer Dragoon.
Yeah.
But isn't that more like you're on like a rail? I guess that in the early Star Fox games that's the way it was too. But you said it was kind of open world, so I didn't. Can you go anywhere you want, or does it have, do you have kind of a fixed track and you just kind of weave your way through that track?
No, yeah, you have like pretty much freedom of anywhere to go, and at least on the first section I was at, you kind of do this like training mission, and then you kind of fly off to guard this, I think like an empress or something, or empire or emperor, and you can just fly around the world though if you wanted to off from there. So it's pretty open world. Graphically, I mean, it looks okay, I guess. I mean, it looks fine. Like it's not like this is an indie title. Obviously, it's not like super 3D graphics and stuff like that, and it's just kind of cartoony, not really cel shaded, but more of a cartoony aesthetic to it. Um, and that was fine. I don't know. I guess I was expecting a little bit something better, and maybe I shouldn't have just because it was it's a smaller studio. And I believe too, it might have. I don't know if it was this game or maybe even Haven or something else that was coming out on Xbox that it was like done by one person or basically one person. I think he had like help here and there.
Yeah,
So I mean,
I think that was Falconeer, and it got a lot of buzz because it was a launch title on the Xbox Series. But yeah.
yeah. So I mean, it's pretty impressive. I mean, in that regard, but I mean, the graphics are not going to blow you away, but still, like I said, it plays good. It's just like a little too sensitive for me, especially during the fights. Like I'm trying to save this Empress, and I'm like just flying all over the place. There's other Falcons that are on your side, but then there's enemy Falcons too, and they just have the little indicator that hey, this is an enemy. It's a little red triangle or something. It's like, but there's just like so much going on, and I'm just moving around too fast, and it was just a little disorienting at first. But yeah, there's another one I'll keep plugging away at too, since this is my year of Game Pass that I'm doing this year. So, but no, this was actually one of the games I wanted to try. So I'm gonna keep going at it too, and see how it goes.
I'll cover the next increment of Railway Empire, and then I'll turn it back over to you to close this out with Ark. So I have been playing Railway Empire through a few different sessions. I finally spent enough time in it this time around. I think I stayed up till like 2:00 in the morning playing about 5 hours of it. It just got in my maw enough to where I was like, I need to like tear this game apart a little bit more and kind of break it down and understand more about it. It is a really deep economics model underneath this game, to where there's it's like I want to eventually get back to spend a lot of time with the game, but I'm so far into this scenario. I have like 8 or 9 trains, but like the next competitor has like 65, and like there's one of the computer AI players has like 155. But rather than start that scenario over, I want to continue kind of pounding away at this one just to get at more of the incremental dynamics within the engine. One thing that I did understand, and it has caused me a little bit, as a game like this should, to want to kind of go back and reread some of that history of like the age of rail in the United States. I think it'll be particularly interesting. But one thing I found is definitely you just have to take loans from the bank. Like you have to sell bonds. Because that, gaining that immediate capital to expand your rail line to eventually pay it back is just a critical element of the game. There's really no way around that, and I wish I had learned and known that earlier in the scenario. The other thing that they talk about a little bit is you really have to kind of manage your employee base. Because at a certain point, just buying more and more employees, which is a little bit counterintuitive, like doesn't make your trains run better. So discovered that along the way. The other thing is I finally understood the maintenance model, which is a little bit counterintuitive, just in terms of each train kind of has a maintenance meter that you can see decrementing over time. But there's no way to really refurbish a train or put a train in the train yard for maintenance, which you would kind of expect would be part of the model. You can put personnel on the train to slow down, right, how much negative maintenance occurs over time. But really, the whole methodology is that once the train depletes its maintenance wear, you're just supposed to replace the train engine on that track, which again just didn't really, having played so many games with a maintenance model in them, just didn't jump out at me as like the intuitive way to go about that. So, but while I was figuring out those things, I read enough to see that like the economics model just goes even deeper and deeper than that, to a point where you really need to buy industries and towns to, right? I mean, so what you're really building is a rail conglomerate, not simply a railway. And so understanding that, gaining that deeper understanding of how railway companies are really put together, right? It really becomes an essential element of the game, which it's not just a model train set, right? Which is really kind of what I was going after when I loaded that game up. So I will be scratching at that surface a bit more as we go on.
So,
Yeah, go
excuse
ahead.
me. So is it more management stuff, or can you actually like lay out like kind of lay out the tracks, or like at least lay out like a plan of how you want to do, where you want to go with it?
I would think of it more as a rail line, right? It's from the management of the rail line up, right? Like you don't dive down to the point, other than managing staffing on the trains, you don't really dive down to the point where you're like micromanaging the incremental, controls of the train itself. Like you don't manage its speed or yada yada. You set parameters for the rail line. What it goes to pick up, what it's going to load. Again, staff on the trains. You select the different. You have a research tree where you get access to all types of different types of train engines, right? So Swiss, like if you think of like the World of Warships tech tree, it's kind of like that. But it's much more so about, and I mean, even to the point where you have a company management tab or a corporate management tab that I just basically ignored, right? In that tab, there's a banking and finance section that again I just basically ignored while I was playing the game. Like I was much more focused in tunnel visioned on like the individual rail line management. But to play the game effectively, you really have to kind of pick your head up and look across this notion of conglomeration management and buy breweries and warehouses and things like that. So I'm interested. It's definitely holding my interest. It's just I've got to figure out those last few things and then eventually I'm going to have to start a new scenario to take advantage of those things at the beginning and outset of the corporate race rather than figure them out mid scenario. So Prime, do you want to talk about Arc?
Yeah. So real quick, excuse me. So I'd mentioned, I think it was last month that I played a few games, like 2 or 3 games with my son because he actually wanted to play on the Switch. So we did that for a little bit. But then recently, the last couple weeks, I actually jumped back onto it on the Xbox Series X, and just wanted to check that out because I think there was an update for the new console, and it seems to be running pretty good. I haven't had any graphical issues or like weird like AI stuff. Still, that happens every once in a while, but it's not like as bad as it was when I was playing before. And I think that's just overall, not just because it's Xbox Series X, but they obviously gotten better with the game and optimize it and stuff like that. But I just been I jumped back there and just by myself and just started kind of building up my little hut that I've started. I've died few times now, either just from stupidity because like I fell down a cliff or something, like a side of a cliff because I wasn't paying attention, or just the dinosaurs attacks. They just kind of pop up and spawn kind of randomly. Like there's sections where they kind of spawn and you kind of tell where that is. So I try to build my stuff away from that. But obviously sometimes it's still you'll get like a raptor or uh, I forgot what those spitting ones are called. They kind of spit out that like acid, or not really acid, but it kind of like paralyzes you or blinds you for a few seconds. So
Like the one that killed Newman.
yeah, for the Jurassic Park, yeah. So they'll hit you, and they'll usually there's at least 2 of them. Sometimes it's even like 3 or 4. So if they gang up on you, you're pretty much dead. You can't unless you can kind of avoid that that spit, and then you can kind of try to run away. But if they hit you with that, it kind of slows you down and stuff. So they can just jump on you, and you're pretty much dead. But yeah, I've been having. I want to jump back in that. I usually get in there a couple times at least during the week, each week. So, and you kind of have to do that at least once a week to jump in there because otherwise. So I'm playing just PVE right now, where other people on the server can't directly like break down your stuff. At least not right away. Like after a week, there's like a time limit. After a week, they can do it. So I try to jump in there at least once a week, just so I can have my stuff still standing there. They can still do it indirectly, like if they have a dinosaur chasing them and they kind of hide behind your building. The dinosaur trying to get at them, trying to hit them, but they're actually hitting your hut, and they'll eventually break it. So people have done that before. I've had that happen back, I think in the preview version or the what do you call it for Xbox? I forgot. game preview, where they would do that sometimes. So so far so good. I haven't had any issues with people messing with me. So I think maybe people have calmed down now. Now it's been a few years, but hopefully that'll keep, and I'll be able to build up my little base a little bit more. And as you progress and get more experience, you unlock different materials. So I started with like just wood. Now you can go into stone, and you'll get to a metal eventually, and you can like build different weapons and stuff like that. So I definitely want to get up to that point, which I've never had a chance to before.
Cool. Any additional questions or comments, gentlemen, before we roll on to close out with our next Picks Plays assignment?
Good.
All right, so next Picks Plays, the next expansion in Final Fantasy XIV is due out this fall, and so hit up one of your favorite expansions, or one that you were just curious about or haven't spent enough time in. What will be curious in this discussion, which will take place right here in the next couple of weeks, is what each host considers applicable under the label expansion. We aren't defining it for you here, so feel free to use your own cognizance to do so and argue your case. So as of today, now this will change, as we all know, for me across our next 2 or 3 episodes. So what I've penciled in here for now is I'm gonna continue playing Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, and my justification for that is because it's on the Season 1 Battle Pass. And I thought tonight how that game just continuously evolves incrementally from week to week, quite honestly, right now. Swiss has marked down that he will be playing potentially Civilization 6 Rise and Fall or No Man's Sky. So your question mark, Swiss, are those because you want...
This is just kind of my initial brainstorming, but it could change as well. I just recently bought the Platinum Edition of Civ 6 because it was on sale on Steam. So now I have like the expansions in Civilization 6, and I'm like, well, okay, maybe that could be applicable. And I know that No Man's Sky, like talking about Haven, you asked about No Man's Sky. I think for that, it made me remember that game has evolved a lot since probably the last time I played it. So that could be another option.
Absolutely. Next week is a deep dive episode with Swiss as host, and Tao will be right back here with him as co-host. So without further ado, on behalf of the E2KG Network, my name has been Agasically Stamus. My co-hosts have been Swissguard and Tao Master. Thanks again for joining us tonight. Be right back here next week for next week's deep dive on industry news, full of sweet, sweet, sweet analysis, as I mentioned by our co-hosts Swiss and Tao. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there. Play the games that you like and come here to talk about the games that you love. Once again, my name has been Agasically Stamus from the Rounding Off Affinity Gaming channel on YouTube, the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube, aka Game Logic on Twitch. That's going to do it for us for tonight. Good night, good luck, and good gaming. We're out of here.